The town of Hollowbrook clung to the edge of the world like a stubborn stain, its cobblestone streets slick with rain and secrets. 16-year-old Alara Finch crouched beneath the skeletal branches of a hawthorn tree, her charcoal scratching furiously across the page of her sketchbook. The symbols etched into the mossy stones of the ancient well consumed her, spirals like knotted entrails, jagged lines that mirrored the town's crooked chimneys. They pulsed in her vision even when she closed her eyes, a language only she could see. Traps for the curious, her mother had called them years ago. Alara's hand stilled. She could almost see Mama kneeling here, her auburn hair escaping its braid as she traced the carvings with ink-stained fingers. Their ledgers, little shadow. Tallies of debts this town would rather forget. The memory dissolved like smoke, leaving only the sting of abandonment. Mama had vanished a decade ago, her desk littered with sketches of these same symbols. A pebble struck her boot. Still chasing ghosts, Finch. Tobin Hale leaned against the well, his lanky frame swallowed by a patched wool coat. He tossed her a thermos of ginger tea, steam curling from its spout like a serpent. Alara caught it, the warmth seeping into her chilled palms. They're not ghosts. They're proof. Proof of what? That old man Hargrove drinks too much and sees demons in his soup. Tobin's grin faltered as he glanced at her sketchbook. You're wasting your time. Even if those marks mean something, no one here wants to know. She flipped the page to reveal a sketch of the clock tower, its face cracked at 11:59. Then why does the mayor keep sending Gareth Pike to whitewash them off the well? Why tear down the mill ruins last summer? Tobin's jaw tightened. He fished a rusted pocket watch from his coat, his father's, she knew, and began winding it. The tick-tick-tick filled the silence. Alara pressed. Your uncle's still on the council. You could ask. And say what? He snapped the watch shut. That the shadow girl thinks scribbles on a rock will crack open the town's bones? They'll laugh me out of the square. Rain dripped from the hawthorn's branches, bleeding the charcoal lines on her page. Alara swiped at the smudge, staining her sleeve. You're a coward, Tobin Hale. He stiffened. And you're a fool. Just like your ma. The words hung between them, sharp as shattered glass. Alara stood, tucking the sketchbook into her satchel. At least she tried. She left him there, the pocket watches ticking fading behind her. Dusk bled into the winding woods as Alara pushed through the undergrowth, her boots sinking into moss that gave like rotting flesh. The trees here grew twisted, their bark split into sneering faces. Mama had warned her never to come alone. The woods. Remember, she'd say, tucking a sprig of hawthorn into Alara's pocket. They hunger for new memories. But the symbols called to her, the same ones from the well, carved into the roots of a lightning-struck oak. Her breath hitched. Kneeling, she brushed away dirt to reveal tarnished silver. A locket, shaped like a teardrop, its chain snarled in the roots. The glass shard inside glowed faintly, humming against her palm. Caw. A crow perched above her, its head cocked. Not black, iridescent, feathers shimmering oil-slick blue. It dropped a hawthorn berry at her feet. Shoo, Alara whispered. The bird laughed. A human laugh, high and brittle. She scrambled back, clutching the locket. The crow took flight, its wings scattering dead leaves that swirled into a face, a woman's, mouth stretched in a silent scream. That night, the locket burned beneath Alara's pillow. She stood in the clock tower's shadow, rain needling her skin. A woman in a moth-eaten gray gown pressed ink-stained hands to the stones. Beware the seventh chime, she rasped, voice echoing with the creak of gallows rope. They'll try to silence you. As they did me. Alara woke gasping, the taste of coal smoke on her tongue. The locket pulsed like a second heartbeat, casting blue light across Mama's old journal lying open on her desk. A sketch of the same woman stared back, Lila Veyra, 1953 scrawled beneath. Her mother's handwriting spidered across the margin. They called her mad, but she saw the rot beneath the lace. Tobin found her at dawn, asleep at her desk, cheek smudged with charcoal. He lifted the locket, its chain slithering through his fingers like a live thing. The glass shard flared, and for a heartbeat, he saw it. Smoke. A pocket watch glowing blue in his father's hand. Screams. Run, Toby. Don't look BA. He dropped it, the vision snapping. Alara stirred. Took you long enough. This is bad magic, Finch. His voice shook. Whatever your mama got tangled in, it's not worth your mind. She pried the locket from his grip. Then why are you here? He had no answer. The nightmares worsened. Each time Alara closed her eyes, the clock tower's shadow stretched longer, its hands inching toward midnight. Lila Veyra's voice coiled around her like smoke, repeating the same warning, beware the seventh chime. But it wasn't just Lila who haunted her now. Last night, Mama had appeared. She stood at the foot of Alara's bed, her dress singed at the hem, hair matted with ash. You shouldn't have taken it, little shadow, she whispered, holding out a hand blistered and raw. The locket isn't a key, it's a lock. And you've opened a door that can't be closed. Alara woke to the taste of burnt sugar and the locket's glass shard glowing crimson. Tobin found her retching in the alley behind the archives, her fingers clawing at the cobblestones. You look like death, he said, offering a handkerchief. She swatted it away. Why do you care? Go back to your clocks. Because someone has to drag you out of the fire, he snapped, louder than he'd intended. A shopkeeper across the street glared, making the sign of the hawthorn, thumb over heart, fingers splayed like roots. Alara stood, wiping her mouth. You've seen it too, haven't you? The visions. He hesitated, then unbuttoned his collar. A livid burn snaked up his neck, shaped like a pocket watch's chain. The locket showed me my father's death. The mill fire, he didn't just let it happen. He started it. The confession hung between them, raw and bleeding. Then help me prove it, Alara said. Mrs. Pell awaited them in the archives, her spectacles reflecting the storm gray light. She'd laid out a spread of brittle newspapers and a photo of Lila Veyra mid-scream, her hands clawing at the mayor's throat. Whisperglass, Mrs. Pell said, tapping the locket with a letter opener, is forged from the tears of Hollowbrook's founders. They wept not for sorrow, but for the lies they'd buried. She slid a journal across the table, property of Eleanor Finch, Alara's mother's name embossed in flaking gold. Alara's hands shook as she opened it. Entry, October 31st, 1993. Lila's sister Clara visited me last night. Not in flesh and smoke. She says the ledger is hidden in the mill's north wall, but the mayor's men are watching. I fear they know I'm close. Tobin leaned over her shoulder. Your mother was hunting the truth too. And look what it cost her, Mrs. Pell said softly. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing a scar identical to Alara's ink stains. Lila was my grandmother. The whispers, they infect. The locket grew heavier each day. It pulsed against Alara's chest during lessons, during meals, until she couldn't tell its heartbeat from her own. At night, it dragged her into memories not her own. Lila stitching a funeral gown by candlelight, her needle pricking finger after finger. Blood dripped onto the fabric, blooming into poppies. They'll say it was an accident, she told the empty room. But we'll make them see. Clara, age 12, hiding under a loom as boots thundered past. Find the ledger, Lila's voice echoed from the rafters. Before the seventh chime. Mama, younger than Alara remembered, burying a lockbox in the winding woods. Forgive me, she whispered to the crow perched on her shoulder. Tobin avoided the workshop now. Instead, he haunted the mill ruins, his father's journal in hand. The pages reeked of whiskey and regret. April 15th, 1983. Alden Veyra paid me half up front. Said the fire would be clean, just the east wing. But the wind changed. I heard them screaming. Clara Veyra's hair caught first, bright as a match. He vomited into the weeds, the words searing his retinas. When he looked up, Dr. Imogen Veyra stood over him, her tailored coat untouched by the grime. Curiosity is a disease in this town, she said, plucking the journal from his grasp. Shall I tell the council you've caught it? Or will you be a good boy and forget? Alara found him at dusk, huddled in the belfry of the clock tower. The locket's glow painted his face in bruised blue hues. She took it, he said, voice hollow. The journal. All the proof. Alara gripped the rusted railing. Below, the town sprawled like a corpse mid-autopsy, its secrets spilling from every shadowed alley. Then we find the ledger. Clara hid it. My mother's journal says so. Tobin laughed bitterly. The mill's been rubble for decades. Even the rats avoid it. She pressed the locket into his palm. The glass shard flared, and suddenly they were both running. Clara's braid whipping behind her as she ducked into the mill's cellar. Men shouted above, their boots shaking dust from the rafters. She pried up a floorboard. Shoved a leather-bound ledger inside. For Lila, she whispered. Then the world exploded into flame. They broke apart, gasping. The vision clung to them like cobwebs. Tobin's eyes were wild. We're next, aren't we? The ledger's the fuse, and we're the match. Alara fastened the locket around her neck. Then let's burn it all down. The mill ruins loomed like the ribcage of a long-dead beast, blackened beams jutting skyward. Alara's breath fogged in the air as she picked through the rubble, the locket burning colder with every step. Tobin lagged behind, his father's journal clutched to his chest like a shield. This is madness, he muttered, kicking a charred spindle. It crumbled to ash. Even if the ledger's here, it's probably dust. Alara pressed a hand to the locket. The glass shard flared, casting jagged shadows that slithered up the walls. North wall, Clara's voice hissed in her mind. Behind the third stone. She traced her fingers over the mortar, gritty with decades of soot. One stone shifted, whispering secrets in a language only the dead understood. The vision struck like a fist. Clara, 12 years old and trembling, wedged the ledger into the gap. Flames roared overhead, chewing through the roof. Lila, where are you? She sobbed. A shadow fell across her, not a fireman. Mayor Alden Veyra, his face a mask of regret. I'm sorry, child, he said, and slammed the stone into place. Alara gasped, wrenching her hand back. The stone clattered to the ground, revealing a rotted leather ledger. Tobin recoiled. Is that Clara's blood? Alara finished. Rust-brown stained spiderweb the cover. The ledger's pages crackled with every turn, each entry a nail in Hollowbrook's coffin. December 3rd, 1952, paid J. Hale £200 for East Wing maintenance. February 14th, 1953, union dues withheld, £1, $2.50. March 7th, 1953, Lila Veyra inquired about missing funds. Recommended silence. Tobin's finger trembled over his father's initials. He wasn't just a watchman. He was their accountant. Alara flipped to the final page. Clara's childish scrawl filled the margin. Lila knows. Meet me at the tower at 7. Don't trust the mayor. A dried hawthorn petal fluttered out, identical to the one in Lila's diary. Caw. The crow perched on a shattered loom, its iridescent feathers gleaming. It dropped a scrap of fabric at Alara's feet, a swatch of gray wool, singed at the edges. Mama's cloak, she whispered, the last thing her mother had worn. Dr. Veyra's voice sliced through the ruins. You truly think you've won? She stood silhouetted in the doorway, clutching Tobin's father's journal. Gareth Pike loomed behind her, a rusted fire axe in hand. Tobin stepped in front of Alara. It's over. The ledger proves everything. Proof. Dr. Veyra laughed, a sound like ice cracking. This town was built on lies. What's one more? She nodded to Gareth. Burn it. Alara clutched the ledger to her chest. You'll kill us all. No, Dr. Veyra said softly. Just you. The locket erupted. Blue flames raced up the walls, not consuming but revealing. Ghostly workers materialized at their looms, threads spinning into smoke. Clara's spectral form lunged at Gareth, her hands glowing white-hot. He screamed as the axe melted in his grip. Run! Tobin dragged Alara toward the cellar stairs. The crow dive-bombed Dr. Veyra, talons raking her cheeks. Clara, she shrieked, stumbling back. Not Clara. Mama. Alara glimpsed her mother's face in the crow's beady eyes before the ruins collapsed behind them. In the cellar, the ledger pulsed like a live thing. Alara pressed it to the locket. The glass shard blazed, searing her skin. The 7th chime is the reckoning. Lila's voice boomed through the tunnels. Break the lock, and the debt comes due. Tobin gripped her shoulders. Alara, stop. You're not thinking. She wrenched free. They killed her. Your father, the Veyras, they burned her alive. The locket's chain snapped, embedding the glass shard in her palm. Memories flooded her, not hers. Lila's. The clock tower at midnight. Mayor Veyra's hands around her throat. You'll die a madwoman, he hissed. And your sister with you. Clara's scream echoing through fire. Mama burying the locket, the crow whispering. It's the only way. Alara screamed, the visions tearing her apart. Tobin slapped her. The shock snapped the connection. She slumped against him, blood trickling from her nose. The ledger lay open between them, its final page glowing with Clara's last words. The tower is the key. Stop the 7th chime. Smoke coiled through the cellar, thick with the stench of burnt wool and regret. Alara slumped against Tobin, The ledger's pages crumpled in her fist. Blood dripped from her palm where the locket's shard had embedded itself, glowing like a shard of frozen lightning. "We need to move," Tobin urged, hauling her upright. The tower, before the chime. Above them, the ruins groaned. A beam shattered, raining embers that winked out mid-fall, snuffed by an unseen breath. The crow swooped low, its talons snagging Ilara's sleeve. "Follow," it rasped in Clara's voice, leading them through a fissure in the wall. They emerged into a Hollowbrook unrecognizable. The streets writhed like living things, cobblestones replaced by knotted roots. Townsfolk shuffled past, their eyes milky and vacant. "The locket's breaking time," Tobin muttered. "We're in between." Ilara's hand throbbed. The shard pulsed in rhythm with the distant toll of the clock tower. One chime. The wending woods encircled the tower, trees bent into archways of bone-white bark. Shadows slithered across the path, whispering promises Ilara couldn't quite hear. 2. 3. Tobin gripped her uninjured hand. "Whatever happens, don't let go." A figure lurched from the undergrowth, Gareth Pike, his face blistered, axe still smoldering. "You'll burn," he gurgled, swinging wildly. "Like your mama." Ilara ducked, the blade cleaving the air where her head had been. The crow dive-bombed Gareth, pecking at his ruined eyes. He screamed, thrashing into a thicket that snapped shut around him like jaws. 4. 5. Almost there, Tobin panted as the tower loomed ahead, its face now cracked at 11:59. The hands twitched, fighting an invisible force. Dr. Veyra awaited them at the base, her cheek torn from the crow's attack. "You think you're heroes?" she spat. "You're just the next fools in a long line of sacrifices." Ilara raised the ledger. "Then let's end the line." 6. The ground heaved. Roots erupted, binding Dr. Veyra to the tower's stones. "No, I protected this town. I burned the letters, I buried the—" The crow silenced her with a shriek. "Liar." The belfry stairs spiraled into darkness, each step groaning underfoot. Ilara's blood sizzled where it dripped on the ledger, the pages now glowing with Clara's handwriting. "The 7th chime is a choice," Lila's voice echoed. "Pay the debt or become it." At the top, the clock's gears loomed, each tooth etched with names: Clara, Lila, Eleanor Finch. The largest bore Ilara's own. Tobin traced his father's name. "It's a ledger of lives." The final gear shuddered, grinding toward midnight. Ilara pressed the locket shard into the mechanism. Time to balance the books. 7. The chime wasn't a sound, it was a rupture. Ilara's vision splintered. Clara, burning. Lila, strangling. Mama, burying. Tobin's father, igniting. Dr. Veyra, burning. Herself, unraveling. The tower's gears reversed, names dissolving like ink in rain. Tobin seized the ledger, his voice cutting through the storm. "Take mine instead." He slammed his father's pocket watch into the mechanism. The watch exploded, gears fusing with whisperglass. "No!" Ilara screamed as the locket shard tore free from her hand, embedding in Tobin's chest. He smiled, blood trickling from his lips. "Better memories, Finch." When the silence came, it was absolute. Ilara knelt in the rubble, Tobin's head cradled in her lap. The tower stood pristine, its face frozen at 6:07, the moment they'd met. The ledger and locket were gone. Dr. Veyra stumbled past, her scars vanished, eyes wide with innocence. "Have we met?" The crow landed beside Ilara, dropping a single hawthorn blossom. "The debt is paid," Clara's voice whispered. "But the ledger remains." In the woods, Mira Thorne crouched by a freshly split stone, a glint of blue glass in her palm. The first frost of December painted Hollowbrook in silver, but the cold couldn't numb the hollow space in Ilara's chest where the locket's hum had once lived. She stood at the edge of the wending woods, now eerily still, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Tobin's empty locket hung heavy around her neck, its silver dulled by time and grief. "You don't have to do this alone," Mrs. Pell said, joining her with a basket of hawthorn sprigs. The librarian's scar, once a map of guilt, had faded to a pale thread. Ilara tucked a sprig into the cracks of the clock tower's base. "Someone has to remember." The town had rebuilt, but the scars lingered. The mill ruins were now a memorial garden, its paths lined with stones bearing the victims' names. Dr. Veyra tended the flowers with vacant smiles, her mind scrubbed clean of Veyra pride. She hummed as she worked, a lullaby Clara might have sung. At dusk, Alara climbed the tower stairs, now sturdy and straight. The gears gleamed, their teeth smooth and nameless. But when the seventh chime rang, she still heard the echo of Tobin's voice. Better memories, Finch. The crow found her at midnight, perched on her windowsill with a gift, a sketchbook, its pages filled with Tobin's handwriting. Day 1. Alara's eyes are the color of storm clouds. I'll never tell her. Day 23. Found another crow feather. She thinks it's Clara. I think it's her mother. Day 67. If I don't make it, tell her the locket wasn't her fault. Tell her to live. Alara traced the words until dawn, tears warping the ink. When the crow cawed, she didn't shoo it away. Mira Thorne arrived on the solstice, her boots caked with mud from roads that shouldn't exist. The girl had Alara's ink-stained fingers and Tobin's knack for questions. They say you fought a ghost, Mira said, cornering Alara in the archives. They say a lot of things. Mira placed a shard of blue glass on the table, the locket's missing piece. The woods gave me this. It sings. Alara's scars burned. Throw it into the deepest well you can find. But Mira pocketed the shard, grinning. I think I'll keep it. The crow watched them from the rafters. Years later, Alara stood at the memorial garden, Tobin's sketchbook under her arm. The town had aged, but the clock tower's chime remained stubbornly stuck at 6:07. Mira Thorne knelt by the old well, her own sketchbook open. The locket shard glinted at her throat, its hum softer now. A lullaby, not a scream. They're not just symbols, she told a boy with ink-stained hands. They're a ledger. The crow dropped a hawthorn twig at her feet and laughed. A human laugh, bright and unafraid. In Hollowbrook, the past never sleeps.